Welcome to another mini episode of the Video Store Junkies podcast. So, we are one by one reviewing all 947 streaming services for you, the viewer, so you can decide which ones are worth your money. Today, we're talking about Shudder, which is a kind of a niche service. It is a horror specific service. It's been around since I think about 6 years. It's run by AMC Networks. If you're a horror fan, you might already have a subscription, in which case, hey, thanks for listening anyways, because you do enjoy our voices. But if not, we're going to kind of cover the usability, the functionality, and the content of this service. And then we'll tell you if we think it's worth a subscription fee. So I am joined today by Paul and Renee. And I guess let's dive right in and talk about the functionality of Shudder. Do one of you want to take it away?
Sure, I'll jump in. Um, I think I primarily use it on a Roku, and I use the Shutter channel itself because you can subscribe to it either directly or you can subscribe to it through Amazon Prime, and they're treated a little differently if you do. I really like the app works really well. It's got a decent queuing system. Uh, it's got really good search. What's one of the fun things they've got on the Roku channel itself is it has sort of, so in addition to being able to watch on demand, it also has, I think, three just 24-hour essentially live channels, as it were. So you turn it on and it might be in the middle of a movie, but there's when they call slashics, which are basically slasher classics, but not always. It came from Shutter, which is usually like newer things they have on Shutter, and I can't remember what the third one is. But basically, it's like if you're like, I want to watch something scary, I don't care. I just want it. I just want to put something on. You just flip to one of those, and you might be in the middle of something, you might be beginning and end, and it just runs, and you can just leave it running all day, all night, and sometimes that's kind of fun. Where you're just like, oh, let's just see what's on, and sometimes you watch it, you're like, oh wait, I want to watch that movie. I think the interface is great for finding things. They have, that you can start. They have separated sections for movies and series and things like this, but they also have curated collections. So they might have a famous actor or director, and they'll have their picks, or they'll have themed collections. Oh, like Horror 101, and that'll have things like Nosferatu in it, and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, or it might have Love Hurts, and it's uh, love themed horror. They also have special months that are great. Like, so they'll really do a thing on. They did horror noir, and they had a great thing on black horror, with including a horror noir, which was a really good documentary on the history of black horror. Um,
Mm.
and overall, I mean, the interface I really love. I think it works really well. I don't think I have a hard time finding anything. It'll show you your movies you've been watching in the middle of. It's that if you've stopped something, or kept watching a series, but you also have your queue. And then I like it overall. I don't want to steal anyone else's thunder, so what do you think, Renee?
I really like Shudder. I think horror's. I don't think I know horror is my favorite genre. Um, I will say I'm probably a good comparison because I actually am subscribed to it through Amazon, and I looked at the Shudder site today, and there's a lot. There are some differences, and I am not happy about it, to the point that I actually canceled on the Amazon side to subscribe on the just for the Shudder directly, because it doesn't break things down like you were saying. Like you can say, like, I want to watch a movie about a giant killer anything monster, and you can go into like the big giant killer monster section, or the movies that are all about serial killers, or the movies that are all about religious horror, just really nicely broken down that you just don't see anywhere. And they don't have that through the Amazon app, so I would recommend going directly. Um, Other than that, I probably my only other thing, which they have a good selection. I wish they had a um especially in certain areas. I'm a big fan of like paranormal horror, and they don't have a whole heck of a lot in that area, it looks like. But I am also a fan of the Shutter originals. I think they do a pretty good job with those. Um, podcast, so I like it.
Yeah, so I also subscribe to the channel directly, and I use a Roku. And I mean, I gotta say, this feels like a streaming service that is designed by people who actually love movies and actually want you to find their service or use their service to find movies. So I love the fact that you can go right in, like you said, Paul. They have the kind of live channels. That's fun. I don't know if I've ever sat there for more than 5 minutes and watched one, but I love the fact that that's the first thing when you come in. They have something playing. You can go through, just look at their entire catalog. You can go through and look at the curated lists. It really feels like they want you to find all of their content. It really feels like a service that is kind of created and run by people who respect the content that they are putting on their service, and they want to highlight the things, and they want to make sure that you can actually discover the things, because I actually feel like some other big services, Netflix, want to basically make it impossible for you to find anything other than the 24 things they want to throw in your face constantly. So yeah, I gotta say the usability is great. Obviously, well, not obviously. I was gonna say obviously they have a queue system. Last week we talked about Paramount Plus, which does not have a queue or a watch list system, and it's garbage. But this one, obviously, the first thing I did when I think I first subscribed, I went through and I added like 100 movies to my watch list, which most of which I'll probably never watch, but that's part of the fun of subscribing to a new service. So, do we want to talk about the content? It's
Sure.
all well and good that you can discover all of their movies and television and other programming, but is any of it worth watching?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some garbage on any service, but the a lot of the garbage that's on that you would find on here is garbage. It's like, this is some great garbage. Like, some of the garbagey things that are on there are there for fun. Like Blood Harvest, which was one where it's a slasher
Oh my
that
god,
has Tiny Tim in it. So and he brought his own clown outfit. Uh, but
such a weird movie.
they have great documentaries. They have a lot of good Shudder originals. Again, the way I think they go out of their way to, especially if you look at the collections, they have a black horror sections. They have, and it's not just like one. It's not just like, oh, here, this is where we stick all these. It's more like, hey, look, here's a spotlight. You want to find uh, female filmmakers. Here's some things we want to really spotlight. It isn't like, oh, look here, we're just sticking these over here as a service. It's like you get a feeling that they really promote these. There's like a queer horror section, and they usually do that. They usually have, like, during Pride Month, they have a big thing about that as well. Um, they have such a great, and it ranges from like brand new things that are just coming out that are exclusives to um, old classics. I mean, they have the Mario Bava collection. They have I mean, like I said, you go back far enough, they've got under Foundations of Horror, they have the Nosferatu and all those as well. Um, yeah, I really, the selection I think is great, and it's such a variety. If you're looking for something intellectual, you can find it. If you're looking for something just bloody and gory as hell, you can find it. I don't think I've ever really been disappointed. I did have, at least in the past, I'd have to take a look. Um, More recently, but some of the older films didn't have closed captioning at one point or subtitles. But I think they've been going through and correcting that for the most part, because I don't think I've run into that for a while, but that was an issue for a little bit. But yeah, I really enjoy it. I think the selection is great. You guys?
I think it has a pretty good selection. Although, like I mentioned earlier, I think there's some categories where I personally would want a little bit more, but that's just my own personal thoughts on it. I really do like good God, I'm sorry. I do really like the original content that they have. And I think there's a pretty good variety. And like I said, I really like how they have it all sectioned out. And there really is, if you go to a certain section, you're going to probably find at least, you know, I'd say 5 different movies to search from, probably a little bit more. But yeah, I like it. I really like the variety.
Yeah, I mean, usually my metric for these services is how much of the stuff that I can watch on here can be found on other services. And I
Mm.
say for the most part, Shudder. I mean, there is stuff that you'll find on like Prime and other services that is also playing concurrently on Shudder. But I think my big thing is like even for that stuff, I sometimes actually just watch it on Shudder just because they seem to respect the material more than a company that's just licensed this stuff and they just kind of toss it, onto their service willy-nilly. And then yeah, like you guys were mentioning, there's a lot of originals. They have been leaning, I think, harder and harder almost into the documentary scene in the last year or two, because there are a couple of really good documentaries on there. If you're a horror fan who likes to learn more about the genre and get background on some stuff, they've got some really good docs, which we'll call out at the end here. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's a great selection of stuff that either you can't find anywhere else or stuff that you can find elsewhere, but it's kind of presented in a way that makes you almost want to prefer this service over other ones in terms of if I'm tuning in or if I find a movie that I want to watch and I see that it's available here and on Prime, I'll definitely watch it on Shudder. So I'd say overall the content is pretty strong, and they seem to be pretty committed to originals and bringing exclusive content or timed exclusives to their platform. So I think that's hopefully only going to get better and better as we go on.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your sentiment that they definitely, you can tell it's really, these people care about, they're at least fans of the genre. They do respect it, what they're doing. They put some thought into it.
Along those lines, also about in terms of putting some thought into it and the originals. What's also a neat thing I've noticed is occasionally if they have original that is not necessarily a remake, might be a remake or tied to an much older film, they'll often have both they'll have both on their platform. So for instance, they
Mm.
recently did the Queen of Black Magic, and there's I think like a 1980s version of that. There was a Satan's Slaves, I think was again another one where they did that, where they had their new version and then the one from like the 70s or 80s, so you could compare the two. So I really like that aspect of it as well, which I think is pretty cool.
A
Yeah, and
Mario Bava section.
Yes.
yeah, and we've been talking about exclusive. We haven't even talked about stuff like Joe Bob Briggs, who
Oh
has
God, yes. How could we not?
returned. Yeah, classic horror film host Joe Bob Briggs, who, what was it, TNT back in the day that he was on?
Yeah, and
And
Monster Vision. Yeah.
yeah, Monster Vision, and now he's back on Shudder. I think he did his first special in 2018 and crashed the servers because it was so popular. So
Yeah.
yeah, so he's been doing specials pretty regularly ever since. And I had actually, so I was aware of him, but I had never actually seen his old shows because I never had cable when I was a kid. So it was actually kind of fun to kind of discover him. And like you were saying, oh man, what was the one you mentioned with Tiny Tim?
Oh, Blood Harvest.
Yeah, Blood Harvest. I don't know if I could have sat through that film just vanilla, but he did. That was on one of his shows, and it's always fun to watch a movie like that and hear his commentary and he has a vaster knowledge of horror than just about anyone in the world probably. So it's always fun to kind of hear him talk about the background of films and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and what's neat the way they're presented is even though there are no commercials on Shutter, because he was people were used to him from Monster Vision on TNT, where he would talk between the commercial breaks like an old time horror host. That's what they do. They'll break the film, and they'll have a break where Joe Bob and Darcy the Mail Girl will sit there and we'll talk about the film, and then they go back to the film, and it's really great. And what's interesting is when they presented Cannibal Holocaust, which is not a film a lot of people would like to watch, but people wanted to hear what Joe Bob had to say. They actually released the bits with Joe Bob and Darcy talking as a separate thing that you can watch without having to watch Cannibal Holocaust, and and that's
good.
a pretty good thing because it's a difficult film to watch. So not having to watch it and get to hear him talk about it's really good as well. So
Yeah. Well, do we want to get into some, I guess, ratings and then do our recommendations
sure.
on
I,
this
I just want to
platform?
mention one other thing is that
Yeah.
in addition to subscribing to Shutter directly or through Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to AM since it is from AMC. You can subscribe to AMC Plus, which includes, what does it include? It includes, what's up real quick? So AMC Plus includes AMC, BBC America, IFC, Sundance TV, Shudder, Sundance Now, and IFC Films Unlimited. I think they put IFC and Sundance in there twice. But so it's a little bit more expensive than just Shudder, but it does get you access to all those. But that you have to kind of go through a provider such as, well, you can get it through I think it shows up on the Roku channel and through Amazon Prime, so you wouldn't get the Shudder app. And I really like the Shudder app, so it might be, unless you really want to get AMC and IFC and Sundance and all those, it might be best just to go directly with Shudder itself. So just thought that was kind of an interesting bit.
Well, do we want to slap some ratings on this one?
Yeah, sure.
Paul, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I really would give this. I'd give it a 5 out of 5 for streaming. It like you guys have been talking about it. It's really seems like it's made by people who care about the genre. They care about the and they it's really well done. It's easy to manage your queue. It's easy to find things. It's neat because you can. It's not shoving stuff down your throat that you don't want, but you can find things that you've never heard of. It's really well categorized. I think if you're a horror fan, this is well worth the. I think it's like $6 a month or $57, I think, for the year. It's well worth the price. And I think you'll always find something that you can watch on there. Renee, what do you think?
Yeah, I would do the same. 5 out of 5. Definitely, yeah, because like you said, it's $57 maybe. Totally worth it. And it's funny when you mentioned that they have the the remake and the original. It's like, oh, really, Paramount Plus? The Stand. All right. Anyway, yeah, 5. I'd give it a 5. What about you, Zachary?
Cool. Well, I feel like I'm lowballing it now because I think I'm going to give this one a 4.5. So the only reason I don't give it a perfect 5 is I do think that there is some room to grow even though they have a lot of great original stuff. I think there's still a little bit of room to grow just in terms of having not even like Shudder originals or exclusives, but things that you can only find on their channel just because there's usually like a, I don't know, 75% chance if it's not exclusive to their channel that you can find it somewhere else. I would love to see them kind of expand their library of exclusive titles. So I'm gonna say 4.5 just because I think there is room to grow there. But I would say this is, I mean, I have half a dozen subscriptions to various services right now, and this is by far, like, if I am sitting down and I don't know exactly what I want to watch on any given night, this is the first place I look for something to watch. So if you're a horror fan, like Paul said, it's like $6 a month or like $60 a year, and it is more than worth it for that price.
For sure.
Do we want to, in parting, do we want to recommend some of our favorites that are currently available on Shudder?
Boy.
And I have to think about that now.
Yeah, well, I can start us off because I have a long list. Some of the it's really all the exclusive stuff, or all the stuff I have to recommend are exclusive. So we mentioned the documentaries they have on there. Horror Noir is a great series about Black horror. Lots of very, very interesting stuff on there. And then I would also recommend Scream Queen, which is about the making of Friday the 13th, Jesus, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And I'm blanking on the actor's name, but the actor who
is it Mark?
Oh man, now I should look it up because now I'm totally blanking on the actor's name. But basically, it was a film that had a lot of homoerotic undertones and overtones, honestly, and just about how he kind of dealt with the backlash from that movie, and now he's kind of come to to a certain extent embrace it. So it's kind of a bit of a feel good thing, but it's a really interesting look into a film that was arguably, I think they call it the first mainstream queer horror film. So it's lots of interesting stuff. It's a backstory that you won't find anywhere else. And then in terms of like narrative stuff, I'm gonna have to say One Cut of the Dead, which is one of their
Yeah.
exclusives. It's a phenomenal film. Can't really say anything about it because to say anything about it ruins it. But it is. Don't watch the trailer. Don't watch anything. Look, if you're okay reading subtitles, it is a Japanese film. Go in just blind. It is phenomenal. It is. Yeah, I can't say anything, but it's phenomenal. And then I'm also going to say this is something I don't hear talked a lot about, but the show Channel Zero, which was originally on Sci-Fi but is now exclusively on Shudder, especially season 2, The No End House, which is it's one of the creepiest seasons of a TV show I have ever seen. Each season is pretty good. They're each based on a separate like copy pasta from the internet, but or creepy pasta, I guess. But season 2 especially is phenomenal and creepy, and I watched it probably 2 years ago now, and it still sticks with me. So yeah, I'd say check that out. Paul or Renee, what about you?
Oh, I'll jump in. Prior to the recent revelations of Richard Stanley, I would have said Color
boy.
Out of Space. You know, we've had discussions before about separating the art from the artist, and recently there's some things have come out about Richard Stanley and spousal abuse. But this is only his first feature in 20 years. Is that what it was? But
Something like that.
it's so well done. It stars Nicolas Cage. It's based on, speaking about separating the art from the artist, it's based on a Lovecraft story. But the movie is it's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. And so with reservations, I'll recommend it simply because of the issues with Richard Stanley, and seeing as he's still alive, then it's always hard to kind of recommend things like that. But it is an excellent film. And sticking in the Nicolas Cage realm, Mandy is absolutely fantastic. It is Nicolas Cage at his Nicolas Cageiest. He really does like tear things up. But there's one particular scene where you start watching it, and it seems like he's being, utter Nick Cage tearing shit up. But then you realize, you sit there and you think for a second, what this just happened to this character, and it becomes this fantastic, heart wrenching performance. And it was so wild to see it I saw this in a theater, but when you watch it, it hits you partially way through the scene that he's doing that. Wait, this is it becomes very real. But then there is also just it's a mind bender. And for some reason, both of them, it seems magenta seems to be the color of horror recently, and both of those are heavily magenta. And then another one that's exclusive is Revenge, which is I think it's French. And at first you go, oh God, it's a rape revenge picture. Why do we need another one of these? But it is so well done. It's from a woman director, and I think she's the writer as well. Coraline Farget, I think but it is so well done, and it is not I Spit on Your Grave. It is really, really. I showed this to my mother, so
To be fair, your mother loves I Spit on Your Grave, so
no, she has
I'm
actually never
kidding.
seen I Spit on Your Grave, but
I kid.
Well, I was gonna say, speaking of your mom, Maniac Cop is on Shudder. So
oh yeah, she is a Maniac fan.
But
And if I could throw one more in,
Yeah.
you guys recommended The Babysitter. I was not as the other week. I'm not as big a fan of The Babysitter as Better Watch Out, which is it's a Christmas one, and it's a babysitter and the preteen boy that she's watching. And again, don't watch the trailers. To me, this one is the horror comedy with a babysitter that to me pays off much better. I really like this with some very creepy character in there. So those are the picks I'll throw at you. Renee,
oh boy.
sorry, did I use up any years?
No, you're fine. My thing that's a little bit hard for me is because I had mine in my Amazon, so it was hard for me to really discern which ones came from Shudder versus which ones were Amazon Prime. It didn't seem like they were very well labeled. Anyhow, there are just a lot of, I'm just going to go a little bit more genre. There's a lot of really old ones on there that are great. You know, old Halloween, Sleepaway Camp, like Zachary mentioned earlier, Chopping Mall. Although that was not in this segment. Just a lot of really great old stuff. There's a lot of foreign stuff on there. And then there's, you know, some goofy stuff. What is it, like Tammy and the T-Rex, you know, so you're going to get some goofy stuff on there too. I do enjoy the Hell House series. That was recommended to me by my nephew, and I trusted him, and it worked. Society is on there, which, you know, that's a very special movie. Yeah, there's just a lot. There's just a lot on here. I think horror movies can be really subjective. So I think I think anybody really, if you like horror, you could go in there and find something you like. Oh, Amsterdam is on there too.
Yeah. Did somebody say Amsterdam?
We're gonna get Paul singing. Before that happens, we should probably sign off. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. This one is definitely worth the money. If you, like I said, if you're a horror fan, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you like pretty much any genre of horror, because like we said, it kind of covers all of the genres and it kind of respects all of them. So regardless of whether you like monster movies or foreign films or, you know, slasher films, just kind of has something for everyone. So I also want to just mention, because I had to look it up. I felt bad because I loved the movie and I was blanking on his name. The name of the actor is Mark Patton. So the name of the documentary is Scream Queen: My Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's all about his experience making that film and what happened afterwards. So it's a great movie. Check it out.
I just want a second on that documentary. It's really good. It's really interesting. It's fun to dive into their documentaries because there's quite a bit of them and quite enlightening. But I do like that one a lot. That one's really good.
Yeah, I can't stress enough. I mean, this is a service by people who have a real reverence for the product that they are kind of presenting to you. So I love the fact that they seem to have a respect not just for the films that they are presenting, but also the stories around the films that they are presenting, which is really cool.
They also have occasionally they'll have podcasts on there as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. I think doesn't like Elijah Wood have a podcast on there or something?
I don't know. I hadn't actually looked at that one recently.
I think so. Yeah, I haven't. I don't usually get into their podcast because usually I'm on there. I'm like watching movies on there. But yeah, I think they have. I think they have a couple of like celebrity podcasts. But I'm pretty sure he has one on there. It's called like Night Visitations or something.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, I'll edit that part out if I look it up and it's wrong. But cool. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So I guess that's a wrap. Good night, everyone.
Good night.